Blake, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here, Mike.
Can you give us a quick rundown on key US economic indicators at the moment and what the trends are?
Well, we're into 6 months of COVID, so it's been a little bit crazy. But the stock market, which most people view as the barometer, is back up quite a ways. Nasdaq is at record highs. The other major indexes are floating around their all-time highs. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between kind of the impact on the economy and what the stock market is telling us.
What about the medium-term outlook for the US economy? How's that looking?
It's kind of one of those things where we can only look up because we had a lot of job losses and things. So as parts of the U.S. are starting to open up, we're having employment rates drop, and but we've had some fits and starts on reopening and then having to close it up again. But I think most of the trends are good. The COVID, even though the rates of positives are up because of testing being so high, the death rates going down, and I'm getting the sense that we're getting a handle on it.
Are there many states that are pretty much back to normal at the moment, business-wise?
I would. It kind of relates to population. So the more sparsely populated states really didn't have the dramatic shutdowns like the California, New York, New Jersey, Florida. So there's definitely a correlation there. I'm speaking from Utah, and I can tell you that here, while we did have some shutdowns, commerce continued pretty well. Our business activity is pretty much still strong. Texas is still very strong. Now I'm working off of first quarter, second quarter hasn't been released, but all the numbers of a lot of the states, not the coastal, but the western states. New Mexico was strong, Idaho. And Texas were all and Arizona, those were all pretty strong.
COVID-19 or government responses sort of smashed a lot of the business community, such as tourism, retail, hospitality. Can you tell us which sectors have been least affected and which sectors are expected to make a strong recovery once the whole business community gets back to working and back to almost normal again?
Well, I can tell you, the professional service firms, those that had the good technology infrastructure, overnight we had 700 home offices. So that technology worked really well to save us. So our revenue is pretty much the same as last year, surprisingly. Law firms are busy. Obviously, our merger and acquisition group slowed down. Obviously, the hardest hit, as you mentioned, hospitality just got annihilated. That's going to take a long time to come back, especially hotels. We're getting a little bit of a bump in the travel industry, but people are still very hesitant to travel. Some surprise, as far as leisure activity, golf, is up huge in the U.S., probably around the world. There's some interesting pockets out there that have flourished.
What do you think will be the main structural changes coming out of the pandemic? Will a large proportion of small businesses never recover?
Yeah, the predictions are that 50% of restaurants probably will not reopen. I'm actually an owner of a restaurant in Southern California, and we've been closed all but a couple of weeks of this pandemic. We're 300 seat restaurant on the coast. So, we'll definitely reopen, but there's just a lot of, restaurants that run hand to mouth and, don't have any reserves, and they're just not going to come back. Their employees have left too. That's part of the problem. A lot of employees have relocated.
How do you then, I mean, it's just interesting with the restaurant industry or the hospitality industry, and it's one thing shutting down and employment basically ceases, but how do you reconnect with your staff?
Yeah, well, there again, technology is the key. I have a daily Zoom call with my employees and different teams in LA and things during the week. But again, restaurateurs, they may not have the technology to stay as in touch with everybody, and it's and part of our fundamental problem here in the U.S. right now is we paid people so much not to work that a lot of the people don't want to come back to work. Again, the lower wage employees are making more money on the unemployment lines than they are working. One other industry that really did two industries that really went well, kind of this in the sin businesses. Alcohol consumption is way up, as well as the legal and medical marijuana trade is way up. So those are two other industries that are very strong.
Obviously, that's an industry that's aiming for great heights or highs.
Absolutely.
But can we get a good Pinot at a good price these days, or are we still going to pay through the nose?
It's interesting, and I actually have an interest in a wine shop, and prices haven't really fallen. I read an article that champagne, there's just millions and millions of bottles. That's the last thing nobody's celebrating right now. There's nothing to celebrate, and so but I priced it at a wine shop, and the champagnes are still at their normal prices, but I think there's going to be some great buys during the holidays because there's a ton out there.
As long as we can get a margarita at a good price, I believe in Marina del Rey, Baja Cantina, have them for $4.50 a margarita, which is just it's sweet music to my ears, as you would account for, Blake. Look, are we going to see a big rise in bankruptcy soon?
Well, interestingly, and it gets very little airplay, but the CARES Act, which is, it was passed as in response to COVID, the first legislative act. They actually put a lot of much more liberal rules to make it easier to file bankruptcy, and we are, I've been surprised of the resilience of the American economy and things and people's ability to hang on. But I do think that, it's just a matter of time before, we start seeing a lot of, failures in businesses. And we're seeing some of the big retailers already filing bankruptcy. Some of the large restaurant chains have filed bankruptcy. But I think we're just going to see a flood of these by year end, unfortunately.
Interesting times with the presidential elections. Can you tell us what the main tax initiatives that, say, President Trump and Joe Biden have put forward and the key differences?
Sure. So, Trump's is a little easier because he's just got minor tweaks. He just initiated an executive order in the last week and a half because of lack of Congress moving. He is imposing a tax holiday for payroll taxes. So anybody making less than $104,000 will not have taxes withheld. through the end of the year. And then I thought this was pretty creative. If he gets reelected, he'll forgive those. So that's, I guess you could say, buying an election, but I thought that was an interesting play. So that's really the big one. He would like to index capital gains, so that's out there. Those are kind of the big ones. He doesn't have a, the 2017 Tax Act was very, very comprehensive and put a lot of good things out there for businesses and most individuals. Now switching over to the Democratic contender, Biden, he will, his is pretty, pretty widespread changes. He would go back to the pre-2017 tax rates, which would be as high as 39.6% for individuals, and that would kick in at about $400,000. And then there's also the 3.8% Obamacare tax, healthcare tax. So you're up in the 43% combined tax rates for individuals. The federal corporate rate is 21% right now. He would push that up to 28%, which is not quite as high as it was before the 2017 Tax Act. He would get rid of most of the accelerated depreciation rules. He'd get rid of the active business deduction, which can be 20%. Haircut on your taxable income for smaller businesses. He'd do away with that. And then he would, for our very wealthy clients, and most disruptive for estate tax purposes, he would do away with what's called the step up in basis rule, which if I were to die with a house that I paid $500,000 for and it's worth $2 million, my heirs get a new basis of $2 million in that property, even though I didn't pay estate tax and they didn't pay estate tax on it. So he would do away with that, and also the estate tax exemption, which is for a married couple is about $23 million right now, would fall to about less than half of that, about 10 million.
What are the analysts saying about how each side will affect the country's economic grow and the prospects under either a Trump presidency or under a Biden presidency?
Well, we're spending like drunken sailors right now, as far as we're throwing a lot of money at the COVID recovery, trillions of dollars at a swipe. And so we're going to see inflation under, I think, either administration. I think even under a Trump administration, by the end of his 4-year term, he's going to have to increase some taxes and user fees and things like that. I mean, we've got to get more money into the government coffers. Our deficits are just madly, just crazy high. And then even though Biden seems to have a lot of momentum, the stock market isn't indicating that they have a massive fear of him getting in. So there's this disconnect, I think, in the stock market and what the real economy is. But I think we're going to have inflation. I think we're going to have devaluation of the dollar because we're going to have to print a lot more money. And so that's what I'm telling my wealthy clients is I'm not a stock expert, but I'm still saying, maybe decrease their exposure to the stock market, sit on some cash. Interest rates are going to come up, and I wouldn't be surprised to see 6, 7, 8% interest rates in the next 4 or 5 years. There was a period in the 80s where we had most people don't remember it, but we had 18, 19% mortgage rates. Overnight funds were paying 20, 21%. It's a crazy time.
Also, some analysts are suggesting that cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin might be an alternative also, especially after the Labor Day weekend.
Yep, and that's where Trump's not a real big fan of crypto. Biden has kind of been silent on it, but yeah, that's they're definitely with the worldwide chaos, a common currency definitely has some benefits, and I always say just cutting out that you're an international traveler, and just that exchange rate going into the ether every time you exchange money is frustrating for people, and using crypto, you're not going to have that.
Let's quickly talk about opportunity zones. You said it's a very powerful program. Just briefly, because we'll talk more about it next week, but why is it so powerful? Tell us about the advantages of these opportunity zones.
Right. So this is a program that was actually developed under the Obama administration, but actually passed Congress during the Trump administration. And basically, anytime somebody has a large capital gain event, whether it be short-term or long-term, can sell any asset that generates a capital gain, and they could sell their business, sell a big piece of real estate. Let's say they have $1 million gain on that. They can roll that into an opportunity zone fund, including an opportunity zone fund they can establish themselves. And the idea is that if they reinvest those funds into an economically challenged neighborhood, and there's over 8,700 census tracts that are designated as opportunity zones, they can either invest that in real estate or an operating business. And by doing that, they defer the tax until 2026, and they also get a 10% discount on the tax that they pay in 2027. And the real benefit, though, is after a 10-year hold of that investment, any appreciation, if I invested $1 million and now it's worth $3 million in 10 years, the $2 million differential goes poof. You never pay tax on it. And all but 4 states have also adopted it, so it's totally tax-free for both federal and state. So about $40 to $50 billion is the estimate right now is what's been invested into these funds, and that money's starting to go into these neighborhoods, and will change the face of the neighborhoods and the residents as well.
Looking at Long Beach and Park City in Utah, what's the main difference at the moment with COVID and with the economy sort of struggling a bit? What's the difference between Long Beach in California and Park City in Utah?
Well, it's really it's an interesting contrast, and I'm on the phone daily with Long Beach, and then I work here primarily. But it's so we have a Utah is a red state. We have a Republican governor, and California has a Democratic governor, and so there's more of a laissez-faire. We don't want to be too restrictive. In Utah, in California, it's a lot of mandatory shutdowns and things, and definitely a lot more frustration in the business community there in California. Here, everybody's everybody's pretty content, feels like they have a lot of freedom. In the county I live in, Summit County, as well as one other county in Utah, we have mandatory masks. So when I'm not sitting by myself like now, I do wear a mask outside. Well, you only have to wear them when you're going into a building. But California, I think the whole state may have a mask mandate. I can't remember.
Interesting with the states that are, in Australia and New Zealand and other parts of the world, it's the great shutdown, but perhaps if they review the data, or the data, they might come to a different conclusion. It seems to be, it's like it's running on emotion and fear more than just facts. So it's an interesting time we live in. Blake Christian from Holthouse, Cullen and Van Trite. Haven't said that for a long time. Now in Park City, and I have never said that for a long, long time. Thank you very much.
Been a pleasure, Mike. Good to see you.